She works the steam press in her family's dry cleaning shop, trying to hold everything together. He collects protection money for the mob, breaking spirits one storefront at a time. But when their paths cross, a spark ignites, and now he must choose between the life he's built and the damage it leaves behind. In a city that punishes softness, can love be enough to break the cycle? Hello family, welcome to Storytime with Imzi. Please subscribe and like, it means the world to us. Also share this video to your friends and loved ones and turn on post notifications so you don't miss future videos from us. Thank you as you do so. Sit back and relax as we dive into the story. Angela Tran had been working in her parents' dry cleaning shop since she was 15. Long days of starch and steam, bleach smells soaked into her clothes, and the constant background noise of the press hissing like a dragon with asthma. Her life was routine, honest, and maybe a little boring, but it was her family's, and that meant everything. She was behind the counter, bagging up dress shirts for pickup, when he walked in. Not a customer. She knew that the second she saw him. Leather jacket, hard eyes, the kind of quiet confidence that didn't belong in a place where people paid $3.75 to have mustard stains scrubbed off a blouse. He didn't smile, didn't browse, just stood there, taking in the shop with a slow sweep of his gaze like he was cataloging every exit. Angela, never one to back down from anything, locked eyes with him and asked, "Can I help you?" The man didn't say much. Just confirmed her name and handed over a slip of paper. No threats, no raised voice. But the message was loud and clear. A typed-up notice saying they were now under someone's protection and owed $400 a week for the privilege. Angela didn't even blink. Her hands shook a little, maybe, but her voice was steady when she told him they didn't need protection. Not from him, not from anybody. He stayed calm. Said it was just business. Said she shouldn't make him come back angry. The nerve of it, as if that was supposed to scare her. She stared him down the whole time, like her will alone could push him out the door. And when he left, she didn't waste a second. Just crumpled the paper and tossed it in the trash, right next to the used lint roller sheets and empty hangers. But something had shifted. Her parents hadn't seen the note. They were in the back, still working, still believing that the world outside hadn't crept in yet. Angela didn't tell them, not that day. She just stood behind the counter a little stiffer, listened to the radio a little less, and waited for the sound of that bell above the door. Because now she knew he'd be back. And she wasn't sure which was worse, that he would, or that a part of her already wanted to know who he really was. Vincent Marino had never liked the collection jobs. Too personal, too close. Shaking down neighborhood businesses always felt worse than the other stuff. With bookies and card rooms, at least everyone knew what they were getting into. But these mom-and-pop stores? They were just trying to survive. Still, orders were orders, and he wasn't high enough on the food chain to argue. The Tran family's dry cleaning shop was supposed to be easy. Old guy, quiet wife, second-generation daughter holding the register. No muscle needed, just a little pressure, a little reminder of who really ran the neighborhood. But that first visit? Vince could still see her face. Angela, all sharp eyes and no fear, standing behind the counter like she was daring him to cross a line. She didn't flinch, didn't cower. She read that little piece of paper and looked at him like he was the dirt under her fingernails. He'd meant to be quick. In and out. Deliver the message. But her stare held him there longer than it should have. She asked him straight if he was threatening them. He didn't even have an answer, just the usual line. Just business. But it didn't land with her. She made him feel like a coward reciting someone else's script. Now it was the next week, and Vince stood outside the shop again, cigarette burning low between his fingers, wondering why the hell he was hesitating. The orders were simple, collect or escalate. The Tran shop hadn't paid. His boss would expect results. But something about Angela made him drag his feet. He went in anyway. Angela was there again, same spot, same steady look. She didn't greet him this time, just crossed her arms and waited. "You're late," she said. Not scared, just irritated, like he'd missed a lunch date. "I gave you until Friday," he said. "We're not paying." "Then I'm supposed to leave a reminder." "You mean smash something?" she asked. "Hurt someone? That your version of a reminder?" He didn't respond. Not because he didn't know, but because she wasn't wrong. He'd done worse. To others. But the idea of raising a hand in this shop, in front of her, suddenly made his stomach turn. Instead, he said nothing. Just looked at her, long enough for the silence to feel heavy. And then he left again, empty-handed. Later that night, he lied to his boss. Said the family needed more time. Said they were going to pay. It bought him a few days. No one questioned him, not yet. But Vince knew the clock was ticking. Sooner or later, someone was going to notice that he was getting soft. And the worst part, he didn't even care. Days passed, then a week. Vince kept finding excuses not to swing by the shop. A bad knee, a mix-up in the ledger, anything that would buy him more time. But when you're part of a crew like his, time isn't a thing you're allowed to waste. The longer he stalled, the more it started to feel like everyone was watching. Still, he couldn't get her out of his head, Angela Tran, with that no-nonsense glare and backbone made of steel. She didn't act like someone who needed protecting. She acted like someone who did the protecting. So finally, he went back. This time, it wasn't raining. It was one of those clear, brittle New York mornings where the cold air cuts straight through your jacket. He walked in expecting the usual standoff, but instead of insults or demands, she said something he didn't see coming. "You ever work a real job?" It wasn't even meant to hurt. It was just honest curiosity, like she was trying to figure him out. And to his surprise, Vince answered. "Yeah," he said. "Dishwasher. Back when I was 17. Before all this." She raised an eyebrow. "And you traded that for breaking kneecaps?" He smirked. "I don't break kneecaps. Not unless I have to." Angela tilted her head, pretending to think. "So you're like a polite criminal?" Something like that. The tension was still there, sure, but it had shifted. They started talking. Nothing deep, not at first. Just little things. She mentioned how her parents had run the shop for 20 years, how her older brother used to help out before he died in a motorcycle accident. Vince mentioned his mother, how she was in a nursing home in Bensonhurst, how she barely remembered his name some days. It wasn't bonding exactly, but it was something. A thread, frayed and thin, stretched between two people who had no business trusting each other. He still walked out without collecting a cent. And she still didn't call the cops. Neither one of them said it out loud, but they both felt it. Something was changing. The rock came through the window just after closing. Angela had been counting out the till, her father mopping in the back, her mother humming softly to a Vietnamese ballad playing from the old radio on the shelf. Then crash. Shattered glass exploded across the floor, followed by silence so sharp it felt like the world stopped breathing. In the middle of the glass was a brick, and tied around it with red string, a note. "Pay what you owe. No more warnings." Her father rushed in, mop still in hand, and her mother screamed, hand clutched over her chest. Angela picked up the note with slow, steady fingers, her face a mask. But inside, rage, fear, betrayal, all tangled together and twisting tighter with every beat of her heart. There was only one person she could think of. And she didn't wait. The next morning, she found him. Vince was at the corner diner, sitting alone in a booth with a chipped mug of coffee and a plate of eggs he hadn't touched. She didn't even let him speak. "You said you wouldn't do anything. You said it was just business." Vince froze. The look on her face, it wasn't anger. It was disappointment. And somehow that hit harder. "I didn't," he said quietly. "Angela, I swear to you. That wasn't me." "Oh, so someone else just happened to know about our shop? About what we owe?" And decided to chuck a brick through the window out of the kindness of their heart. He looked like he'd been punched. The guilt that rose in him wasn't fake. He hadn't ordered it, but he knew who had. And the truth was, by bringing the threat in the first place, he'd lit the match. Someone else had just thrown it. "I didn't authorize anything," he said. "They must have sent someone else. To put pressure on you, and maybe on me." Angela folded her arms, standing tall despite the crack in her voice. "We trusted you. I trusted you." And with that, she turned and walked away, leaving him sitting in that cracked vinyl booth, the sound of her footsteps hitting him harder than any threat ever had. Back at the shop, her father was boarding up the window with old plywood and borrowed nails. Her mother sat silently, folding shirts like nothing had happened, like denial might somehow stitch everything back together. Angela didn't tell them about Vince. She didn't say his name. But in her heart, something had burned clean through. Whatever had been growing between them, it had just gone up in smoke. Vince didn't sleep for 2 nights straight after the brick. The crew was getting impatient. His boss, Tony D'Angelo, had started asking questions. Why wasn't the tram place paying up? Why hadn't Vince followed through? And most importantly, was he getting soft? Vince gave excuses, sure. Said the family was on the verge of folding. Said they needed more time. Tony didn't buy it, not really, but he let it slide. For now. Still, Vince could feel it in the air, the way other guys looked at him, like they were sniffing out weakness. In this line of work, hesitation was blood in the water. Meanwhile, Angela was holding her family together like duct tape on a cracked pipe. Business was down. Some customers were scared off by the boarded-up window, and the rest didn't want to get caught in trouble that wasn't theirs. Her father barely spoke anymore, just moved slower, like the weight of it all was pulling him deeper into the ground. Her mother tried to act like everything was fine, but Angela could see the truth in her eyes every time she locked the door. Angela kept telling herself they'd get through it. They always did. But at night, when she counted out the receipts and came up short again and again, doubt started crawling in through the cracks. Her friends said to report it. Call the cops. Go public. But Angela didn't. Not yet. Because somewhere deep down, somewhere she hated herself for, she was still thinking about him. About the way Vince had looked when she confronted him, like a man ashamed of his own reflection. About how he didn't deny the damage, only that it hadn't been his hand that threw the rock. About how, when he spoke her name, it didn't sound like a threat. It sounded like a prayer. She didn't know what the hell was wrong with her. And Vince, he was on the edge. He started skipping collections, ghosting meetings, avoiding Tony's calls. He drove aimlessly around Brooklyn at night, passing by storefronts he used to shake down like a salesman, wondering how many people hated him for what he'd done, wondering how many of them had once looked at him the way Angela had, before she saw what he really was. Something was coming. He could feel it. Time was running out. For both of them. And neither one knew yet that the real damage hadn't even started. Tony D'Angelo wasn't a man you ignored twice. He didn't yell. He didn't send texts in all caps or bang fists on tables. He just looked at you, and you felt the air go thin. Vince had known him since he was a teenager. Tony had been the one to give him a place, a purpose, a job when nobody else would touch the Merino kid with a record and a chip on his shoulder. But loyalty in Tony's world wasn't love. It was leverage. So when Vince finally showed his face at the garage, 2 weeks late on the Tran job and light on a few others, Tony just lit a cigarette, took a drag, and said, "You got one chance to clean this up." Vince didn't argue. He nodded, said he understood, and walked out knowing damn well what clean this up really meant. That night, Vince drove to the Tran shop with a wrench under his seat and a war in his chest. He wasn't there to hurt anyone. He kept telling himself that. Just make a scene. Crack a pipe, bust a shelf, scare them enough to get back in line. Nothing permanent. Nothing unforgivable. But when he parked across the street and saw Angela inside, all alone, sleeves rolled up, sweat on her brow, folding shirts like her life depended on it, he couldn't move. She looked tired. Not just physically, but soul-tired. Like someone who'd been strong for too long. Vince sat there in the dark, fingers curled tight around the steering wheel, and finally understood something. This wasn't just business anymore. This wasn't even about Tony or the money or the crew. It was about her, and what he was becoming. He didn't go in. He just drove away again. Back at the shop, Angela had no idea she'd just been a breath away from real trouble. But she felt something shift, like a shadow that had come close but never crossed the threshold. The next day, trouble showed up anyway. 2 new guys, ones she'd never seen before, came asking for Vince. Said they were checking on his route. Said they'd noticed the Tran place had been getting a little brave. Angela didn't flinch. She stood her ground, told them Vince hadn't been around, that she had nothing for them. They didn't push, just smiled like wolves and walked out, leaving their card on the counter. A blank playing card with a single bullet hole punched through the center. It was a message. To her. And to him. The weight of it all was crushing now. Her parents were scared, but they didn't say it. Vince was spiraling, and he knew it. And still, neither one could quite let go of that strange thread between them. Thin, dangerous, and pulling tighter by the day. Vince knew what the card meant. That hole-punched bullet? That wasn't just a warning. It was a countdown. Tony had sent in backup. Not to help, but to clean up the mess Vince couldn't finish. It was the mob's way of saying, "We gave you a chance. Now get out of the way." Vince had a choice. Stay quiet and let them do what he hadn't, or burn what little loyalty he had left and try to stop it. He made his choice. It started with a call. One Angela almost didn't answer. She saw his name flash on her phone and nearly let it ring out. But something made her pick up. "They're coming," he said, voice low, raw. "Tonight. After close." Silence. She didn't thank him. Didn't scream. Just asked, "What are you going to do about it?" "I'm going to be there," he said. "But you need to get your parents out. Now." She didn't ask if she could trust him. She didn't need to. Somehow, despite everything, despite the brick, the lies, the fear, she knew. Angela moved fast. Told her parents there was a gas leak. Drove them to her aunt's in Queens. Came back alone. Locked the front door. Waited. The shop was quiet, too quiet. Every creak of the floorboards made her muscles tense. The press hissed once in the back, like it was exhaling under pressure. And then they came. 2 of them. Same guys from before. Leather jackets, empty eyes. One had a crowbar. The other, a cold smile like he was already picturing the damage. But Vince was there first. He stepped out from behind the clothing racks like a ghost. No gun. Just standing there, jaw tight, fists ready. "This one's off limits," he said. The taller one scoffed. "You had your chance, Marino. Boss says we finished the job. Then you'll have to go through me." It wasn't a movie standoff. No big monologue. Just 3 men in a shop full of suits and steam, breathing the same thick air, and one of them finally deciding he was done being a weapon. It got ugly fast. The taller one swung first. Vince ducked, countered, caught a blow to the ribs anyway. Angela didn't scream. She grabbed a hanger pole and cracked it across the second guy's back like she'd been waiting her whole life for that moment. In the end, they didn't win the fight. Not exactly. But they survived it. The 2 enforcers stumbled out, bruised and humiliated, muttering threats and curses. But they left. And that was enough for now. Inside, Vince leaned against the counter, bleeding from his lip, breathing hard. Angela pressed a wet cloth to his temple. "You're insane," she said. "Probably," he said. "You're gonna get killed." "Yeah, probably that too." She looked at him, really looked at him, and saw someone new. Or maybe someone who'd been buried under guilt and orders and years of doing what he was told. Something had broken that night. Not just fists and bones. Something inside. And in the space where it shattered, something else started to grow. The next morning, Vince woke on the floor of the shop, head resting against a bundle of pressed shirts still wrapped in plastic. Angela sat nearby, sipping cold coffee and watching the door like she expected it to swing open at any second. Neither of them spoke at first. The silence wasn't awkward, it was heavy, like the kind that settles after a storm has passed, but before you've figured out what's still standing. Vince sat up slow, groaning from bruises he hadn't counted. "You're still here," he said. Angela didn't look at him. "So are you." He nodded. "Fair." She finally spoke again, eyes still on the street outside. "They'll come back." "Yeah. You gonna stop them again?" Vince didn't answer right away. He looked around the shop, at the shirts, the steam press, the calendar on the wall with the corner curling up. He thought about her parents, about the quiet strength in her mother's folded hands, the way her father had kept mopping even after the brick. And he thought about himself, about what he was still doing here, in this place that had never been his, with a woman who had every reason to hate him. "I'm done," he said finally. "With them. With the crew. With all of it." Angela turned now, looked at him like she was trying to read between the bruises. "That easy?" He laughed low and bitter. "Not even close. I walk away, I'm a loose end. They'll come after me too. Probably harder. So you're running?" He shook his head. "No. I'm cleaning up what I can before they notice I'm gone." That afternoon, he emptied his savings. Every cent he had tucked away in lockboxes, under mattresses, in a friend's garage in Staten Island. He brought it to the shop in a paper grocery bag. No ceremony, no speech. Just placed it on the counter and slid it forward. "For the damage," he said. "The brick. The window. The fear." Angela stared at it. "This won't make it right." "I know. But it's a start." She didn't thank him. He didn't ask her to. By nightfall, he was gone. No note. No goodbye. Just a clean break. But she found the jacket he always wore, worn leather, stitched at the shoulder from some old bar fight, folded neatly on the counter the next morning, right under the sign that said "We're open, come on in." Months passed. The shop got quieter but steadier. Customers came back. Her father started whistling again. Her mother framed a photo of the three of them behind the counter. Just them. No holes in the glass. No more shadows in the corners. And every now and then a package would show up. No return address. Always cash. Just enough to say, "I'm still out here. I haven't forgotten." Angela never told her parents. But she kept the jacket in the back, hung between a pressed suit and an old winter coat. She never wore it. She just liked knowing it was there.